First, in terms of the financial due diligence, why it's important, how we do it, how we work with clients, what kinds of things organizations should be thinking about from a finance perspective that would benefit from this kind of historical financial analysis.
I mean, one reason I think financial due diligence is really important is that depending on the type of partnership that the organizations will ultimately have, one organization or the other may be taking on the other organization's liabilities. And if you don't have a clear understanding of that up front, you may not know what you're signing up for.
Yeah, I would build on that. I think knowing where both the organizations are coming from financially is very helpful. Understanding how they've overcome financial challenges in the past, what their sources of income are and what their cost structure is, and being able to compare that to another group of organizations is really central to understanding how you can work together in the long term and what changes might be needed or what foundations you can build on. I often see organizations that have complementary sources of income, and they can see where by combining they can be stronger together, because one group might have strong individual donations while another group has strong contracts with government or a strong philanthropic connection. And so by working together, they can really expand the pie, but you don't really know that until you dig into how what the business model is essentially of both organizations, and really looking back and seeing how they handled things in the past. Sometimes there have been issues in the past and folks need to be aware of them. And it's also just as important to understand, how did the leadership overcome those? How did they deal with that? Were they transparent? Did they hit it head on, or did they stick something under the rug? And you only find that out if you go back and sort of look at what the history has been, not to judge it, but to understand how things were handled.
I think one of the important values of the financial due diligence process is the self-discovery process that each individual organization goes through. I can't tell you the number of times that I've been working with an individual organization on presenting their historical data, where people around the table are having these light bulbs go on over their heads all the time. It's like, oh, that's our trend? Interesting. And then just on the other side of that, discovering like where they're really strong and being able to speak to that when they're presenting their sort of side of the story, I think is a key thing. And then really understanding also their limitations on their income, the limitations on their liquid assets, that those being able to be super clear-eyed about both your strengths as well as the places where you have limited flexibility, really important.
For a lot of organizations, the finances are some of the most guarded elements of who they are and what they do. And one of the things that's interesting about the negotiation process is seeing organizations come together, start to share, pull the curtain back on those finances, talking in real terms about what they're seeing, where there are those strengths, where there are those challenging areas, and starting to really collaborate together. Also, for a lot of organizations, part of the negotiation process is building some sort of future-looking budget, and that sometimes is one of the first opportunities that they're actually working together on something, getting their hands dirty in something together as an organization, even before deciding to move together, but getting a sense of not just what the numbers are saying, but who their potential colleagues are, and start to deepen those relationships through the process. And often that that's one of the first ways that they really start to build a solid rapport and can accelerate the process of them coming together.
I just want to say something about thinking about fundraising together, because I've seen a couple of clients recently who are looking at what could we raise together and doing sort of a preliminary type of campaign feasibility. And And it's been super exciting, the reaction of donors and funders around the potential. You're thinking about working together, and then you would be creating this new value proposition. And then the excitement of funders is palpable in most of those conversations. And so that, I think, is really exciting when groups come together. They understand their historical financials, but then they are looking forward and looking at future budgets and looking at, gosh, if we were aligned and we were working together, what could we do? And hearing from funders that they would be supportive of that is really exciting.
I really, just thinking to your current client where they're just so eager to jump into it, let's get into the financial due diligence, just get it done. And I think one of the key things is it's great, but let's calibrate why we're doing it, and let's make sure that we do it at the right time. I think is one of the key things that I would say. It's a big task, and it's a big to do. And for the most part, I find that what it's doing is it just kind of, it's a large part, there's a lot going on, but it's a stamp of approval for the organization. So it's necessary in there, but I think we always have to encourage people to kind of just, let's start building some rapport before we jump into each other's finances. So I think it's just important for people to always note that it'll come, but just be patient in terms of when it comes.
Trust is a huge factor that through the negotiations process, sitting across the table from each other and working through other less challenging issues, although they're typically all challenging, but for them to kind of create a sense of comfort with each other. I think sharing finances and the story behind them is sort of vulnerability 102. And I would want there to be a genuine sense of trust within the group before going there.